What's up everybody, welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony, let's jump in. Okay, happy Saturday everybody. A general trend and growing policy concern which we've been following for the last 12 months here on China Update is the increasing number of university graduates entering the labor force in China each year. According to the Ministry of Education, 10.76 million Chinese students are expected to graduate college this year, the largest group of graduates in China's history, and 1.6 million more than last year, which was also a record year. The number of Chinese college graduates looking for jobs is expected to continue expanding by more than 1.1 million a year over the next few decades. The problem is, there are not enough attractive jobs for these new workers. Now, this is actually a much bigger challenge than it seems at first glance, and indeed some analysts have described it as a slow-moving systemic crisis in the labour market which could affect the entire economy of the country for at least a generation. This week, several analysts with Chinese financial media outlet Caixin published a brilliant report looking at this very challenge. So I thought that this week it was a good time to also do a deep dive into this critically important topic, blending my own observations and research with the report. The authors of the report are listed in the description below. Now, I do not want to interrupt this deep dive in the middle, so let me just say at the beginning here, as always, if you guys enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the like button. It's a great way to help support the channel and help the channel grow. It's still relatively small, and for anyone who wants to go the extra mile and help me transition this channel to being more sustainable so I can work on this content full time, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and crypto links are in the description below. But as always, thank you everybody for the ongoing support, for watching, for commenting, for sharing, for liking. It's all a massive help and I really appreciate it. Okay, so the report opens by arguing what we've been discussing for a few months now on this channel, that new graduates in China are trying to launch careers in probably one of the toughest job markets in China in the last 2 decades. China's economy faces increasing uncertainties due to the lockdowns with the pandemic, which we've been covering all week, geopolitical issues, China-US, China in East Asia and Southeast Asia and East Asia, and of course the crisis in Europe over the Russian invasion of Ukraine. There's domestic industrial restructuring, as well as the general pain that China is experiencing as its economy goes through a very difficult transition. A transition that we don't know how well will be managed. These are all trends that we've been following on China Update and will continue to follow. They also observe in the report that regulatory crackdowns and market contraction in sectors including the internet sector, the real estate sector, the education sector have forced employers to cut costs and downsize, limiting recruiting in these sectors. We're going to touch more on this shortly. The crackdown on private education providers, especially traditionally an industry employing high numbers of university grads, likely cost the economy hundreds of thousands of decent jobs by itself. At the same time, the report also argues that there is a mismatch between the job market demands and the qualifications of many new graduates, and this is becoming increasingly visible. According to lending recruitment service provider Zhaopin.com, ZHAOPIN.com, job openings for new graduates declined 4.5% in the first quarter this year from a year ago. The labour market has also become fiercer due to large numbers of overseas students returning home. In 2021, the number of overseas students returning to China exceeded 1 million for the first time since records began. So what is the core of the policy challenge for policymakers? Well, the report argues that the crux of this serious employment issue is a structural mismatch. This is an idea that we have touched on in the past, actually. It's argued, convincingly, that there is a gap between college graduates' job expectations and the market's demands. Now, this sounds familiar, right? In many developed economies, whether you're in Canada or the US or Australia or Germany, wherever, some recent graduates can complain that the jobs available to them are not what they expected. And in some cases, especially entitled graduates, argued that most jobs are below them. This welcome to the real world is often a rude awakening for many young people when they first enter the labor market. This is seen all over the world. However, in China, this structural mismatch is much more acute. Data from the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Security shows that the manufacturing industry accounted for the largest portion, 38.7% of demand for talent in China, followed by the wholesale and retail sectors. The high-tech chip-making and low-end manufacturing sectors both have labor shortages. China's major manufacturing sectors may face a workforce shortfall of approximately 30 million by 2025. However, according to survey data, college graduates' most desired jobs are mostly in sectors including internet and communications, real estate and construction, culture and media, and finance. These graduates simply do not want to do these other jobs in high demand. Quote, graduates are either unwilling or not eligible for jobs in sectors that have the most urgent needs for workers. End quote. Another labor trend noted by analysts is the preference for jobs in the state sector, known as Tiefan or iron rice bowl jobs. That is, jobs that are very safe and offer a stable career. With surging applications, these jobs have become increasingly competitive. In 2022, for example, on average, 68 people competed for each position in the National Civil Service exam, compared to a ratio of 16-1 in 2003. But state sector jobs are not just limited to roles in the government bureaucracy. It also includes roles at state-owned enterprises or places like universities. With the reassertion of the state in the economy at the expense of the private sector, which we have seen over the last few years, it's not surprising that many students are also viewing state-run jobs as safer bets than private enterprise. Caixin notes that a 2021 survey by recruitment site 51job.com showed that 39% of students from China's top-ranked universities preferred state-owned enterprises over private enterprises in their job hunts. This means that SOEs, state-owned enterprises, already enjoying regulatory benefits and a whole bunch of other advantages over the private sector, are now not just sucking capital from the private sector, but talent too. The effect that this could have on the health and dynamism of China's economy systemically over the long run is hard to measure, but could well be far-reaching. The Caixin report admits frankly that there simply is not enough decent jobs for graduates in China, and recent regulatory decisions are in part to blame too. Quote, the job market for graduates is cooling as businesses in the tutoring, internet and real estate industries that once offered large numbers of job opportunities are hitting the brakes on hiring after years of acceleration. The education and tutoring industry hired more than 700,000 new graduates annually in recent years, making it one of the most important job creation engines. But that engine ran out of gas since the summer of 2021, when the industry was shaken by new rules. End quote. We remember covering this crackdown at the time and warning of the flow-on consequences for labor markets. Now, there was also another popular industry which was used to hire large numbers of graduates too, the real estate industry. And so there is no need to explain here why this is no longer going to provide a good mechanism for hiring lots of grads. So what can be done? The crux of the matter is the ever-growing number of graduates who can't meet the demands of the job market. There's been a mismatch between students' expectations and market realities. This reflects the fact that China's education system has lagged behind the country's industrial transformation. End quote. Experts have also called for China to promote vocational education to improve the structure of the supply of talent. The government has started to promote this option. However, it will take time, at least a generation, before it can make any dent on progress in dealing with this structural mismatch. However, there's also another issue, a cultural distaste towards vocational education, a distaste which frankly also exists in some parts of the West too, means that many Chinese families still push their children to go to university. So the situation is complex and difficult for many university graduates now and going forward, and will likely get worse. Any major decisions that could fix the issue may take many years before they can really get things back on track. While policy measures and market forces can mitigate some of the pain, this issue will affect an entire generation of young people. And as we touched on before, it could have far-reaching consequences for the makeup of China's economy. This is, of course, also happening during a painful transition for China's economy, with many other headwinds and issues for policymakers and all others in the labour market to contend with. And there is one more point, of course. History tells us again and again, dissatisfaction among millions of young, well-educated people is a very dangerous state of affairs for a country. Beijing knows this only too well. Hey guys, I'd love to hear what you thought about some of the updates we covered in today's episode, so throw your comments below. Always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.